Few TV detective cars are as iconic as Morse's burgundy Jaguar Mark II. But with the final episode being aired relatively recently even in November 2000, surely it can't have much of a tale to tell. But believe me, it really does. Morse first aired in January 1987 and ran for 33 episodes over the next 13 years, and the final episode attracted nearly 14 million viewers. Taken from the books by Colin Dexter, Morse was originally written as having been driving a battered old Lancia. And let's be honest, there was plenty of those around in the 1980s they could have chosen from, but apparently John Thor was insistent that Morse should be driving a British car, and hence the Jaguar Mark II. 248 RPA was the 1960 Jaguar Mark II 2.4 litre that was chosen to play the role of Morse's car. Now, according to Kevin Wheatley, who played Lewis, that was Morse's sidekick, the car was actually found in a scrapyard and, in his opinion, should have stayed there. The car was never particularly in great condition, and apparently in some of the early series it had to be pushed into shot rather than driven. It was kept going for the rest of the 33 episodes, but it was apparently never in great condition. And one interesting thing about this car that does seem to wind up the Jaguar enthusiasts is the fact that it was fitted with a vinyl roof, which was something they were never fitted with from the factory. Once filming had finished in 2000, it's claimed that John Thor was offered the Jaguar. However, he turned it down because, as he described it, a beggar to drive, according to Colin Wexford, and decided to stick with his modern Jaguar instead. So, as an alternative, Carlton TV, who made the programme, teamed up with Woolworths, remember them, for a competition to give away the car as the main prize. And the lucky winner was James Went. He was a 25-year-old lawyer who actually worked in Oxford, where the majority of Morse was filmed, and on the 22nd of November 2001 he received the keys for the car from the author Colin Wexford. But unfortunately he wasn't able to drive it because he'd got a broken wrist as a rugby injury and had to pass the keys to his girlfriend to drive the car. In February 2002, John Thor sadly died, and shortly afterwards the car appeared for sale at Coys and Kensington. Now, according to this article on the Hello website, and now let's be honest, you never expected to see Hello on here, did you? The owner had originally intended to keep the car, but having been contacted by the auction house, had decided to sell it. Now, I'll let you decide what made him change his mind. Coys estimated this car to sell for around about £80,000, which at the time was around about 10 times what a regular Jaguar Mark II would have cost you. In the end, it actually sold for $53,200, and it was purchased by businessman John Potts. Now, John very quickly put this in with David Royal Workshop, who were an experienced classic car restorer, for a complete restoration. But unfortunately, that restoration came to a grinding halt when John's company went into liquidation. It turned out John Potts was more con man than businessman, and in 2009 he was actually jailed for his part in an £80 million fraud involving property and 1,750 investors. But before that, back in 2004, the liquidators of his business decided that the car, at that point was in pieces, would realise a better value for creditors if it was finished off. So they gave the go-ahead for David Royal to carry on the work, and it was eventually completed in 2005, a restoration cost of somewhere claimed in the region of £80,000. The now fully restored car was offered for sale by asset management company Walker Singleton. Now, because it was a sealed bid auction, we don't know what it actually sold for, but it was estimated between £120,000 and £150,000. The eventual buyer was somebody called Ian Berg, and he committed to keeping the car in the public eye and not hiding it away in a private collection. And true to his word, just after the auction result was revealed, he was offered a quick turnaround on his money, i.e. a big profit, if he was to sell the car to somebody who wanted to put it into a casino in Las Vegas on display. But true to his word, he turned them down. So what did Ian do with the Jaguar? Well, to start with, from early 2006 through to I think 2008, he offered it for hire through MorseJaguar.com. Now, it was suggested you could hire this for weddings, PR events, whatever you could come up with. Now, there's no prices on this website, but I did come across this advert on Car and Classic website, which offered it for hire, I think through an agent, so obviously someone's put the markup on here, but they were after £1,500 for half-day hire, but that did include a chauffeur and a security for the car. In 2008, the domain for Morse Jaguar changed from .com to .co.uk, and that didn't really sort of make me show too much interest until I did a My Car check, just to obviously make sure the history of the car, and interestingly, it changed hands in late 2008. Now, to back this up, I found this article on Car and Classic, which was for an event called Round Britain in 2012. Now, the Morse Jaguar is very heavily featured in this one, as you can see, and if you read into the article, it actually says it's going to be driven by its owner, Philip Greeder. So it appears Ian no longer owns it, and I'm assuming it must have just been a private sale, how it changed hands. Now, I can't find out much more on Philip's ownership of this car, but I did find that he'd been involved in entering events such as the Mille Miglia, which is obviously a classic car event. So it looks like he's a very good custodian for this car. MorseJaguar.co.uk seems to have been continually active from 2008 through to early 2020, where it seems to have basically come offline. And at that period, obviously, that was the start of the pandemic, so that's maybe when they decided not to hire the car out anymore. Now, the car is still active because you can see Chris Harris, he of Top Gear, posted in November 2021 even, that he was driving this car. It was for a Top Gear article, and he described it as his favourite ever TV cop car. In September 2022, there was this post on our good old friends Piston Heads by Red Diesel, who had said he'd seen the car outside Lone Pine Garage in Warrington, and he imagined that it was in there for some fettling. And when we look up Lone Pine Garage, they do very much look like the restorer of high-end classic cars, so that seems a very reasonable place for the car to be. And while we're on maintenance, if we look at the My Car Check MOT history, we can see there's only actually 2 MOTs. One was back in 2005 when the car had done 79,400 miles, and then the next one was 2018, just as it was becoming exempt from the test, and it's done less than 2,000 miles to that point. But my problem is, how was it on the road in between those two events? I imagine it must have been on some kind of trade plates, because it would have needed a valid MOT during those times. But the end of Morse was not the end of 248 RPA's acting career. In 2012, a prequel TV series was launched called Endeavour, that being Morse's first name. And 248 RPA got a cameo role, where the young Morse is making police inquiries at a garage. It's on the forecourt as a car for sale, and he seems somewhat smitten by it, and looks like he's tempted to buy it. The rest, as they say, is history. I hope you really enjoyed it. That was a little bit of an oddity. I didn't expect that 80 million fraud in the middle of it, so I hope you found that entertaining. And if you have, please have a look at this other video that YouTube thinks you're going to enjoy.